how MVC actually works and all, right? So here we've already seen different sets of controller model and the view which actually acts together to actually give a full interaction model of MVC. Right? So we'll see more concepts on this today. Fine. So mainly, so let's understand something like in a controller, right? You can have more than one action method, right? Like this controller can maintain more than one action method. In which most of the action methods can have view, right? Few action methods may not have view, but which returns only content as such. Right? So here, let's say whenever we go to home, right? So it is actually making a view, index view as a response, and it is actually rendered. Right? So what I mean is when you run this, so this is something which is my first view, which is actually a home and your index, right? So this is a main view which actually occurs here, right? But basically, let's say we every time we are more interested on getting data, right, and not index. So which means that index is the one which is a default view which gets triggered when you go to home controller, right? And here from index, maybe you want to redirect to some other actions or some other controller actions and all, right? So that is something which is a behavior where you want to communicate something. We'll see how we can actually communicate between actions and controllers, which is same as if you remember in ASP.NET, right? Moving from one page to another page, right? Taking help of query string to move data from one page to another page, right? Similarly, here you can actually send data or move from one action to other action. So let's see how we can actually do that. Now here, first let me go to the index view. So we can go to So here for getting anything, right, we have something called HTML. So this one key here, we'll be using this a lot. So this is called as a HTML helper class, right, which contains all the controls and all the ways to do communications and different stuff here, right? Let's say we want to create a text box, we have a direct text control here, text box control here. We want to create a checkbox, we have we want to create a drop-down list, everything we will be creating using the HTML helper class. This is a main class in MVC which provides all kind of functionalities you want. So now, as of now, what we are looking for is we are looking for a link, so which I can use to move from my index view to my get data view, let's say. Right, in get data it is getting my details as such. So here what I do, I use my HTML helper class, I use something called action link. Now action link is the internal method of HTML helper class, right? Like a static method of HTML helper class which provides different functionalities. You can see actually we have about 10 different overloaded methods, right? So from now, as we are working on the same controller, right? If you are in the same controller, if you want to move between actions, you don't have to go to controller name or right you don't have to mention a specific controller name. Rather, what you can do, you can directly provide an action name. So let's first do that part. So let's say I'm giving something called go to let's say student details. So this is a link name I have. If you remember in hyperlink we have, right? So in a hyperlink or anchor link we used to give some text and the navigation URL or postback URL to actually move. Similarly we have this. So here I want to give the action name. What is action name I have in my home control? Let's say get data is the action method I have. So I mentioned that get data. Now this is how we normally write a link, right, which can actually move in a same controller. I want to move to some other class. Now when I say same controller, what does it mean? I am in a view which is actually rendered from this action method, which is in home controller, and I want to move from this action method to some other action method in the same controller. That is something which is in the same controller moving between actions. So for that, I'm moving my action link and I'm actually providing the action method, right? And this view. So let me review this project and just show you how it's going to work. So here you can see we got a link, right? So when I click on this, immediately we go to home get data, right? Home get data is another action which we have, right? So here we are actually moving from home index to home get data. So this is how we move from one page to another page. Now here, let's say in get data. So what we are actually showing is we're showing different student grades, right? So now here, let's say how we can actually send some details in the query stream to get data. Simple query stream. Now for the query stream here, you can actually have more parameters. You can go for one more method here. So here you can actually send some route details. Right? So when I say route details, let's say here we are looking for name as Sam. So we want the details for Sam, and I'm actually sending it to my query stream. Right? So in my control, as soon as I get here, right? So which means I can actually change this to accept my parameter, right? Because we are getting things in my query stream. You can actually read data into this, right? One, you can actually create a specific parameter for this. Let's say I'm going to create string name. Let's say same as your query string attribute you are going to maintain. Right? If you maintain this, you actually get the name here. So let me just put a breakpoint here and run this. So when I click on the details, as you can see, we get Sam here. Now this is something how we normally get details in here, right? So as soon as you provide more query string details, right, you can actually provide it very easy. Right? So this variable will be assigned. Now you can see this variable will be assigned to a argument to the argument which you have defined for the get data, right? So that's how it works. Either we can actually go with the argument value here, or we can directly go for reading a query string. If you remember, we have already seen reading a query string using the request dot query string, right? So even this feature is also there because it's a simple HTTP request we are getting. So in HTTP request you can get query string, right? And here you can actually provide your name if you want, because it returns a name value collection, right? So in name value collection you can have a string name. Now this will return your query string, right? Either way you can actually go ahead and create a query string, right? And in action method, how to read query string is in this way. We are creating either an argument for your action method or your your directory reading from. So this is something which is like you are actually moving data across actions. Now, when you say across actions, in the same controller, right? You are actually moving from one action method to other action, right? And by sending some parameters to it. Now let's see how we can actually move across controllers. Now let me see, now we know that we can have any number of controllers in our hand, right? So we have created one controller called home controller, right? Now let me create one more controller here. And controller. So this controller, let me call it as a simple data controller. I'm just giving it a name as data, right? So this is my data controller, which again contains an index, right? So let me create a, now we know that as soon as we create any controller, we will get an index default. If you want to actually move to default, yes, you have it. Now let's say I'm going to create a view for this index. Let me just uncheck everything and say add. Now you can see as soon as you create a view for data control, right? Now you can see the separate folder in views will be created named data, and then we have index. Fine, so here let's say this is data controllers default. Now let's see how we can actually call this from our home controller. Now this is my home controller's index, so let me create a new action method. So here I'll say go to, let's say, data, and here I have an action method. I have to provide an action method, right? So action method will be, let's say, index. I want to go to index direct method, and then we have here you can see you have one more overloaded method where you can provide some controller name. So let's provide control name as data, because my control name is data. Now this will take me from home controller to the data controller. Let's see that. Now you can see how we go to data. Now every time you do this, right, you don't have to provide a semicolon, right? And let me provide a simple break here so that we have get code students and go to data. Now click on this. Right now you can see it went to the data controller. The complete controller changed. Previously you were in home index, right? And when I click on this, the complete view changed. It is a data index. So by default the index will not be populated in this because it knows that it is going to data, and we know that in MVC we will have a plain URLs, right, without any extensions now. Right, so this is how we normally link across different controllers and call different actions. Now here again, if you want to send some parameters, yes, you can do that. So let's say in my index, right, what is that? Yeah, in my data controller, I want to pass some variables. So you can do that, but always make sure that the index method is index action method is empty, because that is a default. You can actually create more action methods to read the data from query sync and perform the action. Right? Now, here let's say in my data control, right, I actually want to move from action result. So let me call this is something called get data. This is a flight method, and then return view. Now for get data, let me create a add view of get data here. Let me say this is view for so here what I am trying to do is I have a home controller, right? I have a home controller. So from home, which is my index view, index action, I am trying to index view. I'm trying to go to data controllers index. But here in data controllers index, let's say this has nothing to do. But what I want to do, I want to read out this action or this request directly to get data. How can I do that? There are two ways. Either go to here and change the action name, right? I can do that. I can just say just get data. So when I say get data here, which means I'm actually moving, I know that I will have to move from get data directly. So the request will be triggered to data controller and my get data action method will be triggered. Let's say tomorrow, right, you want to actually route your default to some other action. Right, let's say we have one more, let me just copy this. Right, let's say we have one more action method called get details, let's say. Right, I have you, let me have you. Right, so in that case what happens, again you have to go back here and change it to get details, right? Now which means it's a pain area. So we know that by default you want to load any one of the action, right? Now any one of the action you can actually maintain a symmetric at your main actions itself, because you know that index is going to be always default. Now in that case, how we can actually achieve this is, so let me keep this as index. How we can achieve this, here itself you can redirect to actions. So from one action you can redirect always to any other action. So how to do that? We have something called redirect to action. Now here you can move from one action to other action in the same controller, or you can also move from one action to another action across the controllers. Right? So this is something which gives you a redirect to action result. Right? So here let me mention it as a get data. Right? Now as soon as you get request here, it will automatically want to get data. So let's run this. Now let me click on get data here. Now you can see this is going for getting data. See here, it automatically moved to get data. So even if I actually select index, right, and enter, you can see it is redirected to get data. That's how it works. Right. So now if you want to redirect your tomorrow, let's say your default you changed and you don't want to be in get data. By default you want to move to get details, right? So you can actually change at one place, right? And whoever is calling my data controller, right? Let's say this data controller is being called from 10 different places, which want some default view. Yes, they can call index, but from index I'm redirecting to different action methods which I want to see. Now check out, when I click on this, it will go to get details now rather going to getting data. Now you can see going to get details. Right? Now here, let's say I'm going to take index again. Now you can see it will be there to get details again. Right? So this is how we normally move from one page to another page, which is like moving from one controller to another controller. In same controller, move from one action to other action. Right? So in the same controller, redirect your action request to across controllers action method. Right? Everything you can do actually this way. Right? So this is how we normally communicate between our controllers. Right? Now let's move ahead and see what do we have in our helper class mainly. So HTML helper class is mainly for to get all the controls. Even in our MVC views, right, you can have your normal text controls and everything. Let's say you have input, right, file as right text, and can keep some value as right. So you can have this. So this is something which actually make when you to use enable all the HTML writing here. So in a view of MVC, right, you can actually define all the controls in HTML. Right? So you can see this will be your right? So this will be your text box, simple text box. Or rather using HTML, because HTML use, right, it will actually make inconsistent because you are going to use all the razor code here. Right? So rather using this, you can actually use your HTML helper class with text box. So you have simple text box where you can give name. Name is nothing but you have something called name or ID here, right? This is nothing but your first parameter called name. Let's say I'm going to give it as something called maybe it's something name or something called txt ID, right? Something like that. And come on, you can have an object value, some value. Let's say I'm going to provide some value. A simple text box which you have. So now when you run this, right, you can see these are separate, MVC, HTML helper class text box which you can see, right? So in this way you can use your HTML helper class. We'll see more controls, right? More controls on HTML helper class and how it actually gets triggered here. Right? Now, so before moving for actually checking multiple controls, right? So let's move. Let's go to one communication part, one more communication part with entity framework. So let's see how we can actually communicate with the databases, right? Integrating our entity framework with MVC. Because during this process, we normally call this a business object mapping. Let's see how we can actually do this part. Now, during learning of this business model object itself, we'll actually come across multiple HTML helper class controls like buttons, input buttons, and begin form and everything, and we'll actually understand that itself in our business object model mapping itself. Now, so here initially we can see that I'm saying entity framework, and we'll be using a mapping model in our MVC. Now let's see how we can actually do that. So initially, what we have to do, we have to create an entity framework model item, right, to make sure we are connected to some database. Let's see. Now, let me go back here. So there are two ways how we can actually create that. One, you can create your entity framework node directly in this project because I'm using my MVC intro, right? Or rather, let me create a new project here. So where MVC tool, let me call it as MVC data. I'm just calling that as MVC data, right? Let me select a basic and click on OK. So this time we are going to see how we can actually map things from database directly here in our MVC views using model classes and everything. So let's create that. Now we have MVC data. Let me keep it as start a project which doesn't contains any controllers, right? So let me create a simple home controller. Right now, so either I can create my entity here, which is my entity framework node. Now for that, again, even in MVC project, right, you have to make sure that you have your method packages. which is your entity manager package is already installed. Now if you right click and see, it is true that you will have your packages already been installed, your entity framework packages already been installed, but they are not referenced to your MVC database. Now you can see entity framework is here and you are still getting a install option. Click on that and this will actually install your entity framework. Right? It says that you already have this installed, right? So if you already have for solution installed, then it will actually get your references to your project. Not to worry. And you can see in your references you have your entity framework being updated. Right? Now this is where you will actually enable MVC data to support the entity model. Now here itself in the same project itself, you can right click and add new item. Now you can actually add your entity model directly, right, to your MVC project itself. But in real time we don't do that. Now what we create is, we create a separate class library, separate project, which is of that class library, and then we give reference to this MVC data project. Now today we are going to see how to create a separate class library and provide the reference of output, which is a library or a DLL, and reference it to some website. Let me create a new project here. Right click and add new project, and let me call it as class library. You can see this is the class library I'm going to create, and let me call it as MVC entity class library. Right? Now here is my class library which I created. By default it will create a reference file, which is a class library. Right? Now I'm going to add my entity node, right, entity model here basically. And I'm going to use this library in my website, which is my MVC data, to actually get more details. Now let me right click on this and say, first let's see whether my entity packages libraries are installed, and I can see it is not installed. And when I say installing, which means I'm actually getting all the libraries and actually making sure that we have got all the references. Now you can see, now we have a reference to this. Now let's add a entity. New item. So let's say we have a data model. Now let's say this is, again, let me take it as a college model, because I'll be mapping my students. Yes. Now yes, I want to generate from database. And you can see catalog, initial catalog, we only have this map to college, right? And if you don't have, you can always go to click on new connection. So click on the servers, you have, so whatever servers are mapped to a network, right? So it will actually get all the servers mapped to a network. So as of now, only 2 servers are mapped to my network, which are installed in my local machine, 2 different nodes. I said 2012 node, and my database in that 2012 I can say college and test connection. It is successful. Click on. Now we know that we already have null site which is pointing to college, right? So that's the reason why it will always take the same, but it will replace for collections. And now it says, do you want to save the connection string? Yes, I want to save, but let me give it as DB context. Right, if you remember, my DB context will actually work as the actual class, DB context class, which talks to the entity frameworks DB context. Right? Let me click on next here. Let me get this information. So let's select all the tables and recipes, whatever you have. Click on finish. So this will add a complete entity model for college database. And so we have institute. Now, we got student, we got academics and everything. I mean, whatever we have, we got it. Now, this is something where we actually created everything in here. Now, let me create a class here in my entity class library. So this is a class which I'm going to use, right, in my website, let's say, to get details. So here let me say it as DAL. DAL is my class, which is data access layer. I'm just creating a simple class called DAL, right, and make it public. So here let me create a simple method. Then let's say here I want to return list of students because in my college I have a students table, right? Let's say I'm gonna call get students. Right. So here I'm gonna create college DB context, which is DB context here, and I'm gonna call DB context students dot list, which I can return. Right. So this will return a complete list of students. Now I have a simple method context student which is going to get all the student details and return. Right. So this is my simple class library which I have created, right, where I have created my EVMX, right, which is my entity data model file which contains the complete mapping of college database. And we have got all the models of student, college and everything. Now these are all models that are created inside my EVMX file, right? All this I can access even outside my class library because you can see everything is a public classes here. Fine. Now let's go to my actual MVC project now. Now in my MVC project I have only one control which is home. So here what I want to do is let me show you how to reference your library into the site. Now for that, select a reference, right click on this and say add reference. Now in add reference part we have many options with that, but select on your browse. So when you click on browse, right, select on your solution. So when you select on your solution, you will see all the projects you have in this solution. Now you can see these are all the different projects you have created. Now along these I want my MVC entity class library to be referenced. Right? Select that and click on OK. See what happens here. Now as soon as you click select right now your MVC entity class library will be this is a DLL reference will be added. Now what is a part of the DLL? See here how it works. Now let me go to MVC class library folder here. In this folder, now we have one DMX and everything created. Go to build and debug. Right, let me just rebuild this project. Right, now here in our MVC entity class library we have something called MVC entity class library.dll. Now this is the extension. You can just notice this part inside your code MVC class library being debug. You have it here. Now let's go to site here and see what is a part of this library. Right click on this and go to properties. Now you can see here. You can notice this. This is pointing to the same DLL which we just had a look at. Right? Now this DLL is the output of my project called entity class library, which contains all the classes, all the references to my project. The same I'm actually using in my other site. And this is how we reference. We actually provided project reference here. Now when actually providing this project reference, which is my class library, right, into my site, let's say, you have to make sure even your configurations are in sync. Now what does it mean? Now in my entity class library, I'm using my connection string, right? What is that? You can see I'm using college DB context connection string, which means as soon as I add my library here, which is my entity class library, it will start searching for connection string called college DB context. But when I get it here, no, because in your DLLs, which is class libraries, your configuration files will not be attached or packaged up. Now this will actually go and search in a current sites configuration. What is current sites configuration? When MVC data, you have something called web.com. It will actually search here. Okay? This is where I am now. Let me see this part. Let me not change this. First, let me start using my entity model students. Let me retrieve entity model, and then we'll notice that if I don't provide these corrections in the current configuration file, what will happen? Right? Now, so let's see how to map data, entity date model data into view. This is important again. Now here we are going to use model in the actual way. Right? Now let me create a new action method called let me call this get students. Right? So where I want to get all the students and just say return view. Now, so here, before actually going to view, what I want to do is I want to get data from my entity framework, entity model, and then map it to view. Now this is important, guys. Let's see how we can actually get the data and map it to view. Right? Now here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the models. Whatever class is we have created, like DAL, right? You can directly use as a model, or if you want, you can actually create a direct model here if you want to create. Let's see how I can actually use my DAL as a model. Right? So here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a view, and view's model will be, let's say, student. Now we have a students class, right? Let's say I want to show all the students, details in my view, right? So how do we do it? Let me click on the students and say add view, and let's keep it as get students, and let me uncheck all and create an add. When I click on add, we'll see a simple view will be created, which is of get data. Now here, what I want to do, I want to show all the details here. Now we know that how we can actually pass object or model object to this get students, right? So here you can actually mention that I want a model, right, of what type. Let's say I want a model of list of students. Now you can see as soon as I start typing students, I don't get the reference. Why? Because this is across a library, right? So first say MVC, you can see entry library dot students. See here, this is you are able to access your class namespace, which is a class library namespace in your view, and then in that library you have a students class. I'm using it as a model, which means my get students view will require this type of model object, and your actual controller method called get student should be able to give this type of. Let's see how to do that. Now here I can actually start using MVC class library, right? Where I can say DAL is my class. I can create my DAL object here and just say, let's say I want list of students, right? Let's say student is equal to, I can get it from using get students. So this get students will actually give me all the list of students, and in view I'll pass this to. Right now, when I pass this to, which is an object of my list of students, right? Now the list of students I'm actually getting from get students. If you go to get students here, you can see I'm actually using my DB context to get all the students from database using my entity framework model, right? And it will actually get everything here, and it is pushing to view. And when we actually push to view, if you go to view here, now your object is ready. What you have to do, you have to just map your students into your HTML. Now let's create a simple for each one, right? And And here, what is the collection? You have already seen this. I can take my model as a collection. Right? What is your model? Here, for current view, your model is nothing but a list of your students. Right? And let's print each student name again in here. So let me take a simple model. Even is nothing but an unordered list. In each list, you can create a list item. Let me create a li. And here I want to access my item dot, let's say student. You can see as soon as you click on item, right, you are getting all the details of students, phone number, grade, date of birth. Right, let me say student. This is something where I'm actually getting data in the students. Right, now let's run this. So by default it will actually go to home index. Okay, we haven't created index here, so that's fine. Now you can see we haven't created index, right? So this is a home controller and you know we directly created getStudent, that's fine. We'll do one thing, let's not create index, but let's redirect my action directly to getStudents, right? Where whenever anyone accesses my index, it will redirect to getStudents and it will actually get the details. Now here, what we are looking for is we are looking for the students to get loaded on my screen after getting to database. Now you can see we got the same error. It says no connection string name db context found in configuration file. Remember, that's what we were discussing. You know that this is something which we are getting in DAL, but my DAL is in class level. But in class level, if you go and check, you will find your connection string. But when you provide a reference to a dealer, right, then from dealer, whenever it starts checking in configuration, it will check in DAX project reference data configuration file, right? That's the reason why make sure you are actually providing your connection strings in your configuration file, which is your web.config. Go to connection strings here and place your connection string. Right? Now let's run this and see where it is able to access. Now you can see we are going to get all the student names. Now this is something which we are getting from database. Right? Routed from database to where you are actually getting your data. Okay. So this is how we normally integrate with data model. Now that data model can be anything. As of now in my class library I was using my NT framework. Right? If you don't want to use NT framework, you can also go for ADO.NET. Right? Create all your ADO.NET objects and create in different ways. Right? But normally if you have NT framework, then obviously I would rather prefer NT framework than ADO. Right? Because it gives me all the objects whatever I want. Right? So that's how we can actually load data using your NT framework. Now, so the next step is, let's see how we can actually map. Now we said it is a business object model mapping, which means when I say business object model, when I'm dealing with students, right, I should be able to provide all the possibilities of getting mapped to student details. Now how to do that? Now here, let me create a new action method called student details. This is my separate action method where I'm gonna return view. Now this time, watch out what I'm going to do. So we are going to create a view, but here we are going to use some more options here. Now the first option we are going to use is this. So this student details, I'm going to use strongly typed view. Now what is strongly typed view? Now when I say strongly typed view, this is something where whatever model I'm going to use, right, you can actually select what type of mapping you want to do with this model class. So let's say now this model class will actually give you whatever classes are referenced. It will be in MVC data or even in a library which we have referenced. Even MVC entity class library, whatever class you have, it will be mapped. Now you can see you have student, sport, academic and everything. And in here we have class 1 and everything. So let me select student. Right? Student is a class I have in my MVC entity class. Now your scaffold template. Now what is scaffold template? Now here we are actually providing in what way you want to use your student model class. Now let me have, you can see there are so many options here. We'll actually come to everything, each and every option. But first let's select list. When I select list, which means I want all the students to be retrieved and populated to this. And let's click on add. Now see here, as soon as you click on add, right, you will see your code, our .NET Visual Studio will create a auto-generated code here. Now what does this code mean? See, let's start from here. Now let me close this get students configuration files and everything. And let's say our index is rerouted into get students. Sorry, student details. Now here let's see what it will do. It will actually map to my view. It will map my model as an ID available with students, which means it is same as a getting a list of students again, right? And then what it is doing, it is actually creating a table, right? It is actually creating a table here. You can see table with columns, and each column, now you can see here, and this is creating different controls using helper class. Now you can see it says HTML display name for. Now display name for is one of the internal methods of HTML which takes your actual variable. Now this is a model I'm using. What is the model? The model is student. Now in student, right, what do I have? I have something called, in each model you have roll number. Now I want to create a name for roll number, which is a header column. Right, below you can see all the columns are created, like roll number, student, address, phone number and everything. And you can see for rows, the body part, we are iterating through our model. Okay. So in this model you can see what I'm displaying, and I'm using display for. Now display name for and display for have got different things. Now when I say display name for, it will actually take this same name and it will actually make use of that, and it will actually bold it. Now when I say display for, it will just print the name of whatever you are saying. And the item, display for, when I say display for, it will actually create your actual value of your item you are getting. Right? And you have different actions. We'll see this part. Now let's run this and see how it actually gets rendered. Now by default in your project file, it will actually get redirected to the student details, right? And in student details, we only have auto-generated. It says okay. It says object reference not set because obviously the model you are actually looking for is not being instantiated. Now you can see here I'm just sending my view, right? Now rather what I should actually send the data, right? So let me click on to. That until unless you inject your data, right? Whatever modern data it needs, right? It won't drop it. Now let's send this. See, Now you can see that we have all the details of students mapped. Right? Let me just create a simple border for this. And let me refresh this. Right, now you have everything in place here. Right? Now you can see you got the complete business object of students mapped into a screen with options called you can create a new student, right? You can edit, show the gender details and delete everything here. But as of now, this won't work. When I click on create now, you can see why. Because in my home controller, I haven't created my feed. Right? If you look for different controllers, if you go to the edit, you can see it means edit, but I don't have it. It gives an option for you to actually create them. So we can actually create all of this. We'll see how to create, how to edit, how to delete each and every part, in which you're going to learn more and more concepts. Right? So this is how we normally map our object to that view, right? And obviously you can actually style it up, right? The one part anyways, right? So this is about the object model mapping we have. So now we'll see all these, how to actually mapping of creating new, edit and delete parts in autonomous class.